right, well, good morning, everyone. If you would go ahead and stand with me, we're going to sing our Sunday school songs, and then Brother Leland's going to come and teach for us this morning. Our first song today is My Lord Knows the Way Through the Wilderness. Here we go.
My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. Strength for today is mine all the way, and all that I need for tomorrow. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. Let's do that one more time. Here we go. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow. Come on now. Strength for today is mine all the way, and all that I need for tomorrow. My Lord knows the way through the wilderness. All I have to do is follow.
And our next song this morning is He's Able. He's Able. Here we go.
He's able, he's able. I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He's able, he's able. I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He healed the brokenhearted, and he set the captive free. He made the lame to walk again, and he caused the blind to see. He's able, he's able. I know he is able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through.
Let's sing that again.
He's able, he's able. I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He's able, he's able. I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through. He healed the brokenhearted, and he set the captive free. He made the lame to walk again, and he caused the blind to see. He's able, he's able. I know he's able. I know my Lord is able to carry me through.
We know that He's able, and we know that He knows the way through the wilderness, and every promise in the book is mine. I'm so thankful for that. Here we go.
Every promise in the book is mine. Every chapter, every verse, every line. All the blessings of His love divine. Every promise in the book is mine. Every promise in the book is mine. Every chapter, every verse, every line. All the blessings of His love divine. Every promise in the book is mine.
Our next song is Psalm 48, Great is the Lord.
Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of His holiness, beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth. Is Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great King.
song, Charity. Our last song this morning is Charity. Here we go. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. And now abideth faith, hope, charity, these three. But the greatest of these is charity. Charity. But the greatest of these is charity. The greatest of these is charity. All right, thank you all for singing this morning. You may be seated. I'd like to invite Brother Leland to come up and teach us from the Word.
Thank you, Brother Stephen. All right. Let's go ahead and take our Bibles, turn over to 2 Kings. And before you get to 2 Kings chapter 1, we're actually going to look at the last 3 verses of 1 Kings chapter 22, as it'll lead right into what we're learning today. So, yes, I said 2 Kings, but 1 Kings chapter 22, verse 51. We're going to read those last 3 verses and head straight into our lesson. As we've been going through the Bible, we've learned about some wicked kings. We've learned about Elijah, the great prophet. And today's lesson, I've titled it, Death and Departure. We're going to see the death and departure of 2 people in Israel, one great and one not so great. So, death and departure, man, it's such an encouraging title, right? No, let's 1 Kings chapter 22, 51, as we continue our through the Bible time. Verse 51 says this, and Ahaziah the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and reigned 2 years over Israel. So Ahaziah, we're introduced to him. He is the son of Ahab and Jezebel. So the son of the wicked king, the wicked queen, and he begins to reign. It tells us that he reigns only 2 years over Israel, and we'll soon find out why it was only 2 years. But as we continue, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord, and walked in the way of his father, and in the way of his mother, and in the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who made Israel to sin. For he served Baal, and worshipped him, and provoked to anger the Lord God of Israel, according to all that his father had done. So we meet Ahaziah, and he is not a good king at all. It says that he not only did evil in the sight of the Lord, but he walked in the way of his father and his mother and Jeroboam. So he followed in the footsteps of 3 very, very wicked people. Now, the position of the king was supposed to be the leader of the nation. He was supposed to be the one who led them in following God. And we've seen Ahab, we now see Ahaziah, who were wicked kings who led them to idolatry, led them to wickedness, even throughout the whole nation, that as the king did, so did the people follow. And because of that, there would be judgment. And so as we continue in 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 1, we read a little bit more about what happened. Is that the first slide there? I want to make sure we're at the right. Uh-oh. It's not working up here now. Is that the first slide? I don't think that is the first. Okay. Man, I'm missing some slides. Sorry. So chapter 1, verse 1. Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. And Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. And he sent messengers and said unto them, Go, inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. So his nation, not only is he a wicked king, but while he's a wicked king, there is civil unrest in the country, in the nation. Moab had come under tribute to Israel under the reign of Omri, his grandfather. And Ahab had maintained that tribute, and yet now Ahaziah falls. He injures himself so badly that it says he is sick, which for us either means that he was sick as in like he injured himself and got some kind of infection, feverish, he's stuck up in bed, or he injured himself so bad that he had to be stuck in bed. And we find out later he's in bed. So whether he's actually sick, like with a fever, with an infection, or he's just so badly injured, he's stuck in bed, it doesn't specify, but it says was sick, and he sends messengers. He says, oh man, I'm not feeling too great. I feel like I'm going to die. I need messengers. I need to find out whether I'm going to make it through this. And so he sends messengers to go to Beelzebub, to Ekron, not to inquire of the prophet of God, not to inquire of the prophet of the Lord, but he says, I want you guys to go to Ekron, which is about a day's journey out of the city, out of Israel. I want you to go to Ekron, inquire of their prophets, the prophets of Beelzebub, and find out if I'm going to live. So he sends them on this, basically a 2-day journey. Go there for a day, find out, and come back a day. And so they go, and we see that the Lord sends the prophet to meet them. But the angel of the Lord, verse 3, the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, is it not because there is not a God in Israel that ye go to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? He calls Ahaziah out on his sin. He's saying, hey, you're sending messengers to this God because you really don't believe, you really don't respect, you really don't trust or have your faith in that fact that there is a living God who loves this people and loves even you. But he says, you know, the reason why you're sending messengers to this God is because you don't even care about the Lord God of Israel. So, this is the message. Verse 4, now therefore, thus saith the Lord, thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And Elijah departed. And so the messengers, they've received the message that they were sent for. They go right back to the king, and the king asks them, verse 5, and when the messengers turned back unto him, remember, it should have been at least 2 days before they came back. They came back, why are ye now turned back? And they explained to him the message. Verse 6, and they said unto him, there came a man up to meet us, and said unto us, go, turn again unto the king that sent you. And say unto him, and they tell him the message, you're seeking after an idol that's not the true God because you don't believe in the true God. And because of that, thou shalt surely die. And he finds out from them, of course, there wasn't enough time for them to say, thanks for the message, what's your name, who are you? But he finds out from them just through some simple questions that this must have been Elijah, the prophet of God that withstood even his father. And we don't know exactly what was in Ahaziah's mind. I can only imagine how furiated, how upset he must have been, saying, hey, I sent them to go get a message from this prophet, and then this one comes instead and says, I'm going to die. I want to talk to him. So he sends some messengers to go get him. Well, more than just the messengers, actually. We see in verse 9, it says, and Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, that was verse 10, forgive me. Verse 9, then the king sent unto him a captain of 50 with his 50. So he sends a little army of 50 men with a captain to go retrieve Elijah. Whether it's to retrieve him to say, hey, I'm going to cut your head off because of what you said about me, or to retrieve him and say, hey, what can I pay you to change your message? We don't know exactly what it is, but he goes and sends for them to retrieve Elijah. And we see he really did not have a respect for God. He did not have a respect for the man of God. He says, go get him. Hey, I know he's done some pretty crazy things, so let's send a whole army of 50 men after him. Sends the captain, sends the 50, and the captain comes to him. He's sitting upon a hill, we see in verse 9. And when he went unto him, and behold, he sat on the top of a hill, and he spake unto him, thou man of God, the king hath said, come down. So he references him as a man of God, But we know that's not where his heart was, because then he brings in his authority. Thou man of God, the king, who sent me, my Lord the king, the one, who is the authority in Israel, the one who's actually here ruling, the king said, come down. You better come. I got 50 men. We're going to do whatever we have to bring you there. Come down. So he says the man of God. It's more of a flippant title that he says. Hey, you call yourself the man of God. Okay, man of God. The king says you got to come. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Verse 10, and Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, if I be a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and his 50. The captain came with a flippant attitude, putting his own confidence as well in his king rather than the Lord God. Came and called him, yes, thou man of God, but really didn't believe it as well and paid dearly. But verse 11, we see something interesting. Can you imagine getting that news back? Ahaziah, sick on his bed, says, hey, you remember those 50 and the captain that you sent? Yeah, we just found out that fire fell from heaven and just like in the days of, your dad when the contest on Mount Carmel and the altar was built and fire. Same thing happened to those guys. But, regardless of however Ahaziah heard this message, he sent some more. Verse 11, and again, also he sent unto him another captain of 50 with his 50. And he answered and said unto him, so this second captain comes to Elijah and said unto him, O man of God, gives him the same respect. It's his title. Doesn't really believe it. O man of God, thus hath the king said, come down quickly. This captain is more bold than the first. Comes, says, man of God, didn't you hear the first one? Would you stop messing around? Kind of that attitude. Would you come down quickly? Stop messing around. Come on, the king said you need to come. And Elijah brings forth the same response. Verse 12. And Elijah answered and said unto them, if I be a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And the fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. I can only imagine now what Ahaziah is thinking on his bed. Injured, dying. Now he hears back that it happened again. Can you imagine the message that came to his ears saying, hey, the second troop of guys you sent? Ahaziah, however, we find is very stubborn and sends a third group of men. A third troop. I can only imagine that Ahaziah was probably set about to send as many as it took to get Elijah to come. Not because he wanted to hear from the message of God. But the third captain and his 50 men go. Verse 13, and he sent again a captain of the third 50 with his 50. And the third captain of 50 went up and came, and he has a different attitude. Fell on his knees before Elijah and besought him and besought him, O man of God, I pray thee, let my life and the life of these 50 thy servants be precious in thy sight. Behold, there came fire down from heaven and burnt up the two captains of the former 50s with their 50s. Therefore, let my life now be precious in thy sight. This captain, he comes and he recognizes the authority of an almighty God upon Elijah. That the fire didn't come down because Elijah was something great, and Elijah had to learn this lesson earlier on. But because God had chosen Elijah, God had put his hand upon Elijah, because the authority of an almighty God was resting upon this prophet. And this captain recognized who Elijah was. He recognized who God was. He didn't mention that he came with a command for Elijah. He didn't come to Elijah and say, hey, come down, but please don't hurt me. He comes first humbly And because of that, God sent Elijah. Verse 15, and the angel of the Lord said unto Elijah, go down with him. You can go with him. You can go with him because he's humble. He knows who I am. Don't be afraid of him. And he arose and went down with him unto the king. And like I said, we don't know exactly what Ahaziah was hoping for when Elijah came. And yet Elijah comes, confronts the king with the very same message that he shared with the messengers, and hightails it out of there just like he did with the messengers. Says, Ahaziah, nothing's changed because of your idolatry, because you sought the god of Ekron, Beelzebub. Because of that, there he goes, he's confronting the king. Because you chose to not even acknowledge the one true living God, you will die. And just as God had said through his prophet, Ahaziah dies. Short-lived reign in Israel. So short-lived that he didn't even have a son to take over the throne. And his brother, Jehoram, takes the throne. Verse 17, so he died according to the word of the Lord, which Elijah had spoken. And Jehoram reigned in his stead in the 2nd year of Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, because he had no son. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah which he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? And that's it. That's the story of Ahaziah. He gets 1 chapter and 3 verses because he did not choose to acknowledge God. That we've seen it time and time again through the book of the Kings and through Samuel, and what idolatry has done to the people of God. It has done nothing but destroy them as a nation. God is always willing to take care of and to provide for his own people. I mean, the king and the 2 captains, they all died because of their idolatry. The king, because he chose not to acknowledge God and sought another false god. The captains, because they had more faith in their king, in the word of the king, than in the word of God. And yet that 3rd captain was spared because he acknowledged the authority of an almighty God. And so, as we continue on, we've seen the death of a king, and now we're going to see the departure of a prophet. We've studied Elijah so much, and now this is the final chapter in Elijah's story as we get to 2 Kings chapter 2. And the story is a little different. I fully believe that it's here not only because it happened chronologically here, but because it's intended to be a contrast between the death of a wicked king and the departure of a prophet used of God. And so we see verse 1 of chapter 2, and it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven. Let me get to there we go, Elijah. Lord would take up Elijah by a whirlwind, that Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. So he travels to Gilgal, and Elijah said unto Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Bethel. So Elijah knows exactly what's going on. He knows where the Lord is taking him. And as we find out, many of the prophets know exactly what's about to happen. And he encourages Elisha and says, hey, this is going to be a rough time for you. Why don't you just stay here, and I'll go take care of the business that God has for me. But Elisha, who I believe is the main focus of this passage, even though Elijah is the one who's about to leave, Elisha says, basically, no, I'm not leaving you. Verse 2, the middle of verse 2, and Elisha said unto him, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they went down to Bethel. I mean, can you think back even to when God had called Elisha to this ministry? Elijah had been depressed, and God had sent him to put his mantle over Elisha and called him, basically saying, follow me. You're going to be my servant. You're going to learn from me. I'm going to teach you. You're going to grow. You're going to learn to follow and serve God in some amazing ways. And that is still, in this passage, still the call of Elisha. Elisha says, I'm not going to leave you because God told me to stay with you. I'm not going to leave no matter what's going to happen. I'm supposed to stay with you, and I'm going to stay with you as long as you're alive. I'm sticking with you. So they go down to Bethel, and in Bethel they encounter the sons of the prophets. Verse 3, and the sons of the prophets that were at Bethel came forth to Elisha and said unto him, knowest thou that the Lord will take away thy master from thy head today? Hey, don't you know what today is? Don't you know what's going to happen? What? Are you upset? Like they're trying to get the gossip from him. Like, hey, don't you know what's going to happen? How do you feel? What are you going to do? Are you okay? They ask him. Of course, however, Elisha calmly says, and he said, yeah, I know it. Hold your peace. He says, guys, I know. Can you imagine that? Like knowing that a loved one is about to leave. I think many of us, if not all of us, have encountered that before. Maybe a grandmother or a mother or someone in your family that you care deeply for is sick or on their deathbed and they're about to leave. It's not a fun time. And that must be what Elisha was encountering, knowing that, man, I've followed and I've served and I've walked with Elijah for so long, and the time is coming when I'm not going to have him anymore. But he purposed, no matter what, no matter the discouragement, no matter what was in his heart, he stayed with Elijah. I mean, they're in Bethel, and Elijah tells him the exact same thing. Verse 4, and Elijah said unto him, Elisha, tarry here, I pray thee, for the Lord hath sent me to Jericho. And he said, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. So they came to Jericho, and the same thing happens with the sons of the prophets. Say, hey, don't you know what today is? Don't you know what's going to happen? And Elijah, the same thing. He says, why don't you stay here, and I'm going to go ahead to Jordan. And no matter what was said, or no matter what he knew was going to happen, Elisha stayed with his mentor. And so they go to Jordan. They journey over to the river Jordan. In verse 7, and 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off, and they too stood by Jordan. And Elijah took his mantle and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they too went over on dry ground. And it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee, before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. So Elisha knew what was going to happen. Elijah says, okay, before I leave, before I'm gone, one last request. What can I do for you? How can I help? Knowing that wasn't the power of Elijah at all ever, but he asked that Elisha said, hey, if my ministry of following you is going to be done, can I do what you did? Can I have a double portion of the call of God upon your life? Can I serve God and be used of God in just the same incredible way that you were? Elisha, since the day we met him, had a heart to serve God. And he didn't delay about it. When we met him, Elijah threw his mantle on him and he said, I'm coming, let me take care of this real quick, and I'm with you. And has stayed by his side throughout this whole thing. Elijah tells him, I can't answer that for you, but if you see me leave, God has granted that request. And of course, we see that verse 11, and it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder. And Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. That Elijah didn't just die in the normal way. God took him. In verse 12, and Elisha saw it. Just as Elijah had said, if you see this, if you see it happen, then I'll answer your request. Elijah mourned the departing of his mentor, just as anyone would. Verse 12, my father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof. And he saw him no more, and he took hold of his own clothes and rent them in two pieces. Sure, he was upset, as any person would be. And yet, he faithfully continued serving God. Verse 13, he took up also the mantle of Elijah that fell from him, And he went back and stood by the bank of Jordan. And he took the mantle of Elijah that fell from him and smote the waters and said, "Where is the Lord God of Elijah?" And when he also had smitten the waters, they parted hither and thither, and Elisha went over. He wasn't going over to say, "Where's God now? What have you done?" It was rhetorical. He went over and says, "Thank you, God." It wasn't saying, "Where is God?" He says, "I know where God is. That he's called me, he's given this ministry to me." He's praising the Lord for what he had done. And Elisha, just as when he was called, immediately started serving the Lord. Immediately took up that mantle and went to work. Saw the Jordan, crossed back over the Jordan. And even the 50 sons of the prophets who saw him recognized that the spirit of Elijah was on him. Verse 15, "And when the sons of the prophets which were to view at Jericho saw him, and said, The spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha. And they came to meet him and bowed themselves to the ground before him." And we'll learn in the next couple of weeks just of all the things that God had used Elisha to do, because Elisha was faithful and true to what God had given him to do. Elisha stayed true no matter what was going on, no matter the circumstances that faced him, to the simple call of God on his life. And really that's the contrast. I mean, we saw King Ahaziah, who only served and lived for a short while, who had forgotten who God was, or even just chose to ignore who God was. And because of that, the kingdom was taken away from him. He died after only ruling for 2 years because he failed to acknowledge who God was. He failed to even acknowledge he existed. And yet, Elisha, no matter the difficulty that he was facing, I mean, he knew that his mentor was about to leave. He stayed true to what God had led him to do. Follow this man. Serve this man. And then even after that, when the call had ended, the door had closed, as we would say, when God opened that next door for him, he faithfully served, faithfully followed. You know, it's easy for us sometimes to serve God when life is easy. You know, I think about the song, life is easy when you're up on the mountain. And you've got peace of mind like you've never known. It's easy to serve God when things are easy. But it's when we're in the valley, that's when things are really put to the test. That when things are difficult, can you imagine some things difficult like being stuck in your homes for 3 months? We've seen some difficulty lately. Seen some times in our nation that people haven't seen before of people just being afraid to go outside, of getting sick and maybe getting so sick that they might lose their lives. And yet, it's in those difficult times, of times when unprecedented unemployment, when people have lost their jobs just because people aren't showing up to restaurants, or people don't want to go to the office space because they don't want to bump elbows with other people because they might get sick. But it's in those difficult times that we need to be more like Elisha and stay true and stay faithful to the simple things that God has given us. Simple things like reading our Bible. Every week there was, for me, even though we were no longer at work, there was always a video call and trying to connect with people at work and just make sure everyone's doing okay. And the one question that always came up is, what are you watching on TV? What movie are you binge watching? Well, great, you might have more time on your hands, but more time on your hands doesn't mean we should binge watch this show. It means we should at least stay faithful to the Word of God that God has given us. It doesn't mean I should get so consumed over in this thing but it also means that we shouldn't fret so much to try to figure out our own solutions to things. Isn't that what idolatry is? What is it? I had it typed in here. Idolatry is covetousness. We don't see that much idolatry nowadays where people are literally bowing down to statues, though it does happen. And yet, the idolatry of our days is being so focused and consumed on getting something that you want or even that you think you need or that you may even need, so consumed with that you set aside the very work and call of God in your lives. That maybe some of us throughout this time have lost our jobs or are worried about losing our jobs. And we're so focused on maintaining that and making sure that we're still the best employee working from home or that we are putting out there and searching diligently to find a job, which if you don't have a job, you probably should. But not saying that you shouldn't, but focusing so much on what am I going to do and forgetting about serving God and coming to church. And well, I know if I go to this interview, I know they've set it up on a Sunday, and I know if I interview at this job, it'll pay really well, but I might not be able to go to church anymore, but it'll be okay because I really need to provide for my family, and I really need to provide for myself, and that's what God has called me to do, is to take care of my family. And even in the difficult times, we need to keep our eyes on the Lord. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy path. That staying faithful to the simple call and the simple of working God in your life. That being obedient, that when God speaks to you through your daily Bible reading and prayer, or when you come to church and God's knocking on your heart and saying, hey, you need to get this fixed, you need to get this right. Not just setting it aside for what we think is important, but rather staying obedient, staying faithful to the very work, the very call of God, and being like Elisha, saying when God speaks and when God does something in your life, being faithful to do it immediately. So we saw the example and the contrast of these two, and next week we'll go on to see a little bit more about the ministry of Elisha who boldly and continuously just served God no matter what. So let's go ahead and close in a word of prayer, and then we'll have a couple of minutes before the morning service. Dear God, thank you so much for the example of these, Lord, both a bad example in Ahaziah and a good example in Elisha and Elijah, Lord. I pray that you would help us, even through times of difficulty and struggle, to maintain our focus on you and to serve you and to seek you, Lord. No matter what happens around us, that we would stay faithful to your call and to your working in our lives. It's in your precious and wonderful name we pray. Amen. We have about 6 minutes till the morning service.